Money FM 89.3, the best of Saturday mornings. International News Review.
Now time for the International News Review with Steve Okun. Steve, good morning. Lots of tariff talk to talk about this morning. Take us through this melange of tariff topics.
We even have more uncertainty, if that was possible, when it comes to the global trading system. A federal appeals court in the United States has just ruled that Donald Trump's global reciprocal tariffs, as well as the tariffs he has put on China, Mexico, and Canada for fentanyl, are illegal. And the reason the court says these are illegal is that because the statute, which gives the president the right to address a national emergency, has been completely abused and misconstrued by the president. The trade deficits the United States have been there for decades, and to now claim there is a national emergency which gives the president the right to impose tariffs is illegal. And so now the decision has stayed until the Supreme Court decides. But all of these tariffs on literally every country in the world has just been found to not be legal.
Including Singapore.
Steve, you're a lawyer. Many lawyers in his team, surely someone would have seen this coming. Why is it such a shock now? Why has no one flagged this up before?
There's no shock, no surprise. He does things that are illegal and unconstitutional.
Right, okay, but why have we sat here week after week after week saying tariffs are going to do this, tariffs are going to do that, Deb Elms, yourself and others, week after week after week, if they were going to be declared illegal anyway?
Well, there's a couple of different issues. Not all tariffs have been declared illegal. So it is just those tariffs that were issued under this particular statute. There are other tariffs that are issued for national security reasons, and those we call 232 tariffs. Those are tariffs on steel and aluminum, auto parts, what Singapore is most worried about, chips.
So they stay.
Well, those that have been imposed have stayed. Those that are coming, that have yet to come, could also remain, like on healthcare, and pharmaceuticals, which is what Singapore's most worried about. So you have some tariffs that remain. You have other tariffs that have been issued under IEEPA. These are the reciprocal tariffs, the 10%.
Okay, you've lost us already.
Okay, those have been found illegal pending the Supreme Court review. Now, what you would normally do in this situation, which also makes it even more complicated, but countries like Vietnam and Malaysia and Japan and the EU have agreed to tariffs with the United States. So even though the president didn't have the authority to issue them, but if a country agrees to them, that could be legal. And now what makes it even more uncertain is that you would look to the agreement to see what is it that Vietnam agreed to, what is it that Malaysia agreed to. But we can't find those agreements. Those agreements are somewhere with the Epstein files. No one has seen them. So again, Neil, to open this up, it's just even more uncertainty than we ever started with, and it really puts everything in the global trading system on hold.
Just in one line for Singaporeans listening, does Singapore have 10% tariffs across the board or not?
They have the 10% tariff so long as the decision has been stayed. And what the appellate court has said is we will allow these tariffs to stay in place and let the Trump administration, which they will do, go to the Supreme Court. And then the Supreme Court, which is, of course, supreme, will decide whether these tariffs issued by the Trump administration are legal. Now, Donald Trump said this morning, if this decision is allowed to stand, it would, quote unquote, literally destroy the United States of America.
All right. We'll worry about the destruction of America a bit later in the show. But for now, let's talk about those 50% tariffs that took place on India on Wednesday, took effect in India on Wednesday. What is that impacting? And those are still going forward as we speak.
Well, yeah, everything's still going forward while the decision is stayed. You have to ask yourself, what authority did Donald Trump have to impose those 50% tariffs? Now, I think, and I'm guessing here, 25% of the 50% is covered by IEEPA, which means those would go away. However, 25% are what are called secondary tariffs, and that is because India is buying Russian oil. So it looks like to me, and I'm happy to be corrected by trade lawyers who know this much better than I, it's either 25 or 50 for India as it speaks. But the bigger issue is not do these tariffs stay or not. The damage that Trump is doing to the relationship with India is going to have huge geopolitical reverberations around the world.
It's already happening now. You're seeing India making this diplomatic push to go around the US, working with Brazil, China, Russia, Britain, Japan, Australia, and the EU. Two things. Obviously, that's a smart move for India. And two, just another example, Steve, of the US being isolated.
Well, it's a smart move for India, but you cannot replace the U.S. market. You can't replace it if you're India with Brazil and China and others. So, yes, you should be diversifying, but India is in serious economic trouble if this stays. U.S. businesses are in serious economic trouble because everybody thought from the American side, you want to diversify out of China because of the U.S.-China tensions. Yeah. Therefore, go to India. India is a democracy. India has a great relationship, had a great or certainly growing relationship with the United States. We remember Howdy Modi from Trump's first term. Literally in April, the vice president of the United States is in India, and he says, quote, "This is a great place to do business." Vance goes on to say, "This is very much a win-win partnership and certainly will be far into the future." Well, now we know Vance's definition of far into the future is about 4 months. It is going to have huge issues for the United States geopolitically, and it is going to push India. Brazil was always there with India. Brazil, you don't worry about. Now, India was buying Russian oil, and you could argue they should or shouldn't have been. But it's going to push it more towards China. And India and China have had terrible relations in the last 5 years or so. And they've been improving, since before Trump won. But this is going to accelerate that.
I did think you'd say that. The classic U.S. is too big a market to ignore. India exports $7 billion worth of seafood to the US, right? So let's take the seafood example. China already takes 19% share in across the 2 years, right? And it's growing all the time. China has a population, obviously, of 1.4 billion. Is the US slightly overestimating its market value? China's increasing, other markets are increasing. There's plenty of Chinese ready and willing to buy seafood from India. To use that one example.
No, it's not the one example because you have to look at the stuff that really matters economically. It is not seafood. What is it that India is really known for? One is pharmaceuticals, and you cannot replace the U.S. market when it comes to pharmaceuticals. We pay in the United States more than anybody pays for pharmaceuticals, which is part of the reason why Trump focuses on it so much. You go get a drug in India, in the United States versus Singapore, see what the cost differential is. You cannot, and forget China, you cannot replace the U.S. market for India with pharmaceuticals. Same things with gems, the precious gems that literally are all refined in India. They're not going to China. They're not going anywhere else. This is going to hit the Indian economy hard, and it is really going to hit certain sectors very hard. And that is not replaceable anytime soon. And so this is going to cause India significant issues. And now you see, what's happening is that the U.S. exporters are pushing hard on India to cut their costs. So I agree with my friends like Mark Mealy, and he and I always go back and forth on this. Mark always says, well, these tariffs are a tax on U.S. citizens. That is true, but it's not 100% paid by U.S. citizens. Some of this tax is going to be eaten by the Indian manufacturers, and that is going to hit the India economy very hard. And forget seafood, there isn't a replacement for the United States for the sectors that count the most.
All right, we'll see what happens as well as India is looking at their free trade agreement with Australia, UAE, Britain, and European Union deals. So we'll see what what impact that might have. Modi has already been calling on everyone to be more self-sufficient in India and, kind of come together and get through it. So we'll see if, in fact, they do. This brings up another interesting regional issue as well, because Kim Jong-un and Putin are now being invited to this victory celebration that's going to be happening in China. I haven't heard yet exactly if Modi is going to be there or not, but one would assume that might be an invitation that would be going forward for him as well. We are seeing the gravity of Asia now shifting in certain circumstances, like this one, back toward Beijing with these interesting alliances. What do you make of that? What do you make of Kim Jong-un and Putin? For sure, attending this military parade in Beijing.
Yeah. Well, for the first time, I think ever, from what I've been reading, for the first time ever, the leaders of China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea will be in the same place at the same time.
And no Western leaders have been invited to this parade, apparently.
It feels like the opening scene of Austin Powers.
No, exactly. No, exactly. This should be frightening. That this is the first time ever China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea are going to be in the same place at the same time, sitting around the table. Who's going to have the pinky?
Do you remember Naked Gun? Actually, I just remembered Naked Gun actually did that, didn't they? All of the strongmen leaders around the world. There's a meeting early on. Saddam Hussein was there. A few other guys were there, and Leslie Nielsen bursts in. We haven't got Leslie Nielsen. We've got Donald Trump. Carry on, Steve.
No, we have Liam Neeson now. Is going to
Belarus is going to be there too. Alexander Lukashenko.
Yeah, no, and so it's really and so this is, I think, from a geopolitical perspective, it is bringing that, as I've read, that axis of
evil.
Not they didn't call them the axis of authoritarians.
Yeah.
You could call it.
We call China evil, just to clarify.
I said axis of authoritarians for the record. No, and so that is, you're seeing that now. There's going to be 26 foreign leaders at this parade, and the two Westerners are Slovakia and Serbia, who are going to be there. And so it is showing that China is really growing in strength, not globally, but certainly within Asia, within regional Asia, and it is becoming a much more of a power, even more than it had been in terms of its neighborhood. So that you worry about. Now, what Modi is not going to the parade, but Modi is going. He will be in China, and it's his first time to China, I think, in 7 years. He's going to something called the Shanghai Cooperative Organization, and the SCO. So the Shanghai Cooperation Organization was created in 2001, and that was to have China be a leader of, they didn't call it the Global South back then, but that's what China was trying to do. This is well before Xi Jinping's time. Look, the SCO basically irrelevant, has been irrelevant. Now is Donald Trump going to make it relevant? Having India at the SCO is going to be very different, and having Modi in China is going to be very different. And so you have the geopolitics that you worry about with the parade. You have the geoeconomics that you worry about with Modi attending the SCO in person.
Well, that just brings in again this idea that another example of the 21st century shift of Eastern powers combining with the global South and moving away from traditional Western power blocks. This is just another example of that, Steve.
But it's not. I mean, it's an example of it. But it's Trump that is doing this. Look, India and China have been at loggerheads economically for years,
and he's brought them together.
And he has brought them together. And now we shouldn't overestimate the India-China relationship, because there are still very serious issues there that are not going to become allies overnight. You've got the border disputes, which are still there. You have China, which is supporting Pakistan in the war that they recently had, or certainly in the hostilities they recently had with India. India does not want to see its market flooded with Chinese goods and have all of that dumping taking place, and having India's manufacturing just decimated by the Chinese, like happened in certain places in the United States years ago, and in other places here. You have those issues. let's not forget who lives in Dharamsala, where Glenn and I had the chance to visit.
Yep.
That is a huge issue.
Dalai Lama.
The Dalai Lama. That has a huge issue between between India and China. So let's not get carried away in saying how this is now going to make everything between India and China close allies. They are not going to be. But it is hurting the United States by pushing India to have to open somewhat to China more than it would have done otherwise.
Exactly.
All right. Moving on. One of the people that will be attending, one of the leaders attending that, is the Indonesian President, Prabowo Subianto. And he is now establishing 100 new army battalions and plans more. Now, some critics are saying that this is a move that is echoing the country's authoritarian past. No clear understanding of what these 100 new army battalions mean, but it is a story worth tracking in our neighbor to the south.
No, I mean, there's huge issues in Indonesia. And by the way, I thought we were going to talk about our neighbor to the west as opposed to our neighbor in the south. But we'll stick with our neighbors to the south, Indonesia, as opposed to the Thai prime minister no longer being the prime minister.
There. Yeah, we'll go there in a minute. We'll go there in a minute.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's you've got Indonesia and Prabowo giving a lot more towards the military. You've got him giving payments. I think it's like $3,000 a month to government officials for their housing. And with all of the issues that are in play with the Indonesian economy, this is being very controversial. The use of the military, the use of government funds for his purposes in terms of working with the military as opposed to the people, which isn't what he ran on. And it's causing a lot of problems in Indonesia. I mean, I just had a friend in town who I saw this week who's here from Jakarta. And she's like, no, it is scary what's going on in the streets down there.
It is fascinating because, of course, this has happened before. The counter-argument would be, you have the military working in manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, could make medicines cheaper. You could have more organized, more efficient production. That would be his argument. The counter-argument would be it's going to cost $22 billion next year, about 37% higher than the current forecast. And they're facing huge violent protests across the country already, Steve, because of the economic downturn. Who's going to pay for this?
Well, who's going to pay for it is the people are going to have less services, and that's what they're upset about. And they're saying, this is not what we had voted for. This isn't what you ran on. Your defense budget is 37% higher than what the forecast was. And so when and Indonesia, like everywhere else, is going to face tough economic times because of Donald Trump, because of the tariffs that are being imposed on Indonesia, at least for now, because of what Indonesia has to purchase to rebalance that trade deficit. So you've got serious issues, and the people are not going to stand for this. And so that's what you have to watch in Indonesia.
Should Singapore business be concerned?
Every business should be concerned, and this is when you start getting into the second and third order effects of Trump's tariffs, and you combine, Neil, I'm going to go back to our favorite word, the poly crisis.
Oh, yes.
So you've got Indonesia, which has to deal with climate risk. You've got Indonesia that has to deal with geopolitical risk. Is the money, should it be going there at this time? And then, if you have investment in Indonesia, you really have to worry about it.
All right, let's move on. The Thai Prime Minister, Paetongtarn Shinawatra, has been removed from office. On Friday, the Constitutional Court dismissed Prime Minister Shinawatra for ethics violations, again throwing Thai politics into who knows what position. What do we make of this? It's a developing story, but it is an important development in that country's government.
Well, Thailand having their prime minister removed is something that most countries would call Tuesday. It is Groundhog Day. We've seen this before. We'll probably see it again. She's the second leader in 2 years who's been removed for an ethics breach. You could argue whether she has good judgment, but you could also say it wasn't an ethics breach. So you now have political paralysis in Thailand, and everything we just talked about in Indonesia and everything we talked about in India applies to Thailand. You have some really difficult decisions to make in Thailand when it comes to your economy. The Thai economy is getting hit double. It's getting hit by the tariffs, and then it is also getting hit by scam centers. All those scam centers in Cambodia and those people who are being trafficked through Thailand to Cambodia is having a hit on tourism. People are afraid to go to Thailand because they don't want to end up as a forced/slave labor in a Cambodian scam center. And so you need a strong leader at this time who can, and I don't mean authoritarian, I mean a strong leader who has the backing of the people and can bring the government together to address these two issues that are very difficult to deal with. And they have no one at the top. So it is a huge political issue for Thailand.
Well, and of course, with the military being so ingrained in Thai politics, we'll see if that becomes another military government, in coming months or what.
It does tend to swing back. So this is like the third or the fourth member of the Thaksin Shinawatra family to come in there. This is his daughter, obviously. He's still supposedly the man pulling the strings. And when he gets ousted or someone from his family gets ousted, they do tend to swing back again to more stringent military control.
We will follow that story very closely. Okay, Steve, we got to leave it there.
We're missing my favorite story of the week.
Which is,
of course, the Land Transport Authority engineer smacking
We'll give you a minute on that. Go for it.
Well, there's this viral video going around Singapore where a Land Transport Authority engineer smacked a migrant worker in his helmet with his driver's license because he didn't have a seatbelt buckled and berated him for it. Now, I got to be careful here because I've been berated a lot worse than that guy got berated in my life from my employers. It doesn't make it right. Shouldn't do it. But I think that the issue on migrant workers in Singapore and elsewhere is a lot more than this. And I noticed some NGOs tried to pivot to say we should be focused on migrant worker rights. We should be focused on making sure they don't have to pay fees to agents, which gives them more autonomy over their decisions. I agree with all of that, but guys, people yell at people at work, and the guy did it wrong, and he's getting addressed, and I think that's the right outcome here.
I love you, Steve, but you couldn't be more wrong on this one. You could not be more wrong. That is the lamest, I call it, the Victorian industrial argument. It's better now than it used to be. We used to put kids up chimneys. It's better than it used to be is not an argument. Racism is bad now, but at least we don't have slavery. Doesn't mean you can't get better, doesn't mean you can't evolve. It's better than the bad old days is not a justification.
The guy apologized. The guy got reprimanded. It was handled the right way. And so focus on the underlying issue, not that somebody got yelled at for not wearing the seatbelt.
He got yelled at because he has no voice. He's a voiceless member of our society. He has no recourse. He has no right to complain. He has no right to reply.
And he wouldn't have gotten the apology had the video not gone viral.
He was bullied, pure and simple.
Yeah.
He violated a safety rule. He should have not done that. It should have been addressed way different. There's huge issues around migrant workers. We should have that debate. I think we lose focus on what's most important when it comes to talking about this as opposed to the underlying issues, which are like agency fees. That's what we should be talking about.
All right. We're going to leave it there. We will undoubtedly visit this topic again.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.